Welcome back. The Enyobeni tavern owners Siyakhangela and Vuyokazi Ndevu are expected back at the East London Regional Court on the 23rd and 24th of May for the continuation of their trial. And their trial commenced today but was adjourned due to load shedding. For more on this now, we are joined by Legal Analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala just to tell us more about this case that has finally gotten underway. Mpumelelo, of course, this is a matter that took place last year in June, and of course it came as a shock to many South Africans. It has finally now started, and that trial is now officially underway. What is your take on this matter now finally being heard and the trial is now started?
I think it's a good thing that finally the truth is going to be known. There are a lot of people that have been affected by the events that took place on the day, and there needs to be justice which needs to occur. However, I'm a bit worried in the manner in which these particular matters are being orchestrated. Firstly, you find the matter being delayed due to load shedding, something in which not only would apply to a court in the Eastern Cape, but a number of courts across South Africa. So when it comes to access to justice, one can be able to see that load shedding is even affecting the manner in which justice or the words of justice are supposed to be grinding. But most importantly for me is this one. We seem to be overlooking, or we're a bit in a hurry to find suspects in which are going to be charged, and overlooked what the legal provisions or what the Act actually says. Now, let's concentrate on this one, on the Eastern Cape Liquor Act. It provides that liquor officials are supposed to go and close down these type of taverns which are taking place. Now, taking into account what the witness stated today, it seems as if this particular establishment was well known. However, it was not stopped by the Liquor Authority. Now, the most important question would be, why didn't the Liquor Authority act on this particular tavern, on this establishment? Did it have to wait up until a tragedy of this magnitude would have occurred and lives have been lost? Why were they sleeping on the job, for a lack of a better word? Now, if it is found that they are indeed guilty, or part and parcel of all the tragedy that have taken place, then certainly some sort of legal ramifications must come their way. But most importantly, which may be a worry, is that the two individuals that you have as the accused, it may be a bit difficult to find them liable. In any criminal case, a person has to be found guilty beyond reasonable doubt, meaning that the only explanation that must be presented to the court, must be proved to the court, must be probable, is that but for the negligence of the two individuals that are in the accused box, that is why we have individuals that are dead today. Now, if there are allegations of certain other elements that were found in their bodies, which is definitely going to throw the state case away, which one wonders, wouldn't it have been better for an inquest to be held first, so we are able to determine whether the Eastern Cape Liquor Authority needs to be held accountable, or are there any other individuals that must be accountable before you proceed with this type of proceedings? Once you have started now, you've started today, any withdrawal would lead to a technical acquittal of the accused.
And it brings me to my next question here, and you speak about the contravention of the Liquor Act here, and of course, whether there is a case to answer to. When you look at these charges that they are facing, also looking at the fact that there are 21 children here who lost their lives, how does it look like for the accused?
It doesn't look very good if they're going to be found guilty. However, it also doesn't look very okay, or the case in which the state would then have is not that strong, taking into account the type of technicalities and the hoops in which they have to jump through. As stated earlier, you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that these individuals are indeed guilty, and the manner in which they've acted, in the negligent manner in which they have acted, must then be held accountable. So there must be a direct link between the opening of the tavern, the attending, or the opening and saying that kids can then come through and be able to stay within the particular establishment, and the cause of death that has taken place. Now, if you haven't investigated the matter meticulously, and in your reports, for example, the post-mortem reports, there's going to be something that says it is not only because the children were in a confined space, it is not only because the children were then consuming liquor, there's an added extra element which is there that caused the death of these kids, or that may have caused it. It throws the element of doubt into discourse, and the court has no option other than to let them free. And then the next question is, what exactly are you charging them for? Is it the contravention of the Eastern Cape Liquor Act, or is it the culpable homicide of the kids that have died on that day? So you have to be very meticulous in the manner in which you are going to handle your matter as a state, which is why I say it would have been better if there would have been an inquest first, just to determine who's wrong and who's right, let's determine who the role players are. The most important question is, there is a piece of legislation which controls how these particular establishments are supposed to be run, controls that once you have found one which does not comply with the Liquor Act, this is what you're supposed to do. And the most important question for me would be, why was the Eastern Cape Liquor Authority sleeping on this particular establishment? Why did they wait up until an event of this magnitude had taken place before they acted? I think they are also partly to blame, and they can't be left behind in trying to find justice for the victims.
You're certainly also painting a very bleak picture for many parents who are seeking those answers. One would also ask then, will this case be centered around the illegal selling of the alcohol to, these children who are at that tavern, or will it be centered, looking at the issue of the overcrowding in this tavern?
It would greatly depend on the manner or the stance of the state. So if the state is saying that you've done two controversies here, firstly, you've sold liquor to underage kids, and if that can be proved through the post-mortem reports, I think they'll be able to suffice that. But however, another doubt that will come in is, are you able to prove that the liquor was sold by me? What if my then argument or defense would be, they actually came to my establishment after they've drunk liquor somewhere, and it is only then in which I opened those doors. And then the second one would be, let's check the magnitude or the square meter of the event or the premises that you are looking at. Was there a person who was manning it? Was there a person who was keeping tabs on how many people are inside the tavern? Or is it a thing of saying that it was only sporadic times in which it was overcrowded? It was not all the times overcrowded. But the most important thing that we need to look at is to then say, let us look at the cause of death, because that tells you that we don't have a person who's alive today to do to what elements. And let's check whether those elements are within the control of the people which are in the accused box. If the answer to that is no, then the chances of you finding them guilty are going to be very slim. As stated, you must be able to find them guilty beyond reasonable doubt, meaning there must be no other explanation, other explanation which is going to be advanced by the state that says, but for your conduct, Mr. Tavern owner, these particular kids would be alive today.
What is the likelihood then in Mpumelelo of seeing these two owners of the tavern actually getting a more lenient charge here? And what is the likelihood of actually not seeing someone being held accountable for what took place last year in June there?
It's very likely. From the chances of them being found guilty of couple homicide, I think it's going to be a very steep mountain to climb, and it would need a lot of evidence that will be able to prove that. And that particular evidence must not only be placed there, but must have very strong bonds and links to the death of the kids. However, if we want to find them guilty for contravening the Eastern Cape Liquor Act, that's more or less easy, because those particular provisions are there, and contraventions have taken place from what we have seen and what we have heard. What would then be meticulous is that to be able to provide evidence which is going to be able to prove that. But the most important question would be, after you've done that, if you really want to find justice for the victims, ask yourself this question. As the Eastern Cape Liquor Authority Board and the employees that are there tasked with making sure that every single premises or every single establishment that sells liquor is compliant, what were you doing at all this time? Can't we hold you also accountable in this particular matter? Because you have contributed to an accomplice in the tragedy that we have suffered.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Mpumelelo. That is Mpumelelo Zikalala, our legal analyst there, talking about that issue of those 21 children who died at the Enyobeni tavern last year in June.